Hello and welcome to Code3's Conversations. I am so sorry. I ended up actually switching off of that secondary me on the screen and I took everyone with me. I am so very sorry. So my apologies. But in order to get started and not to delay, I just want to welcome you in to Code3 Conversations. Code3 Conversations is where we're having those community and law enforcement together, decisions, discussions, ways to say, hey, how can we do things better? And our conversations are very relaxed. We ask that you grab something to drink, make sure you've got snacks. If you want to join into the panel side of things and come over and actually be involved in the discussion, you're welcome to. We've prepared some topics for you and we're going to get started. These topics come from posts that I do, and sometimes people will message me on the messenger side of things, or they engage on the actual post. And I have found that community members have given some really good explanations for how they feel the way they feel. I've had law enforcement officers hit me up and say, hey, I could see where this is a need. We are of the philosophy that we're using the riots method. Yes, you heard that correctly. It's a word in the dictionary and it's not used in this way in a bad way. Riots for us means that we ask that you be respectful. Above all else, let's respect each other in everything that we discuss. Have integrity, the I, actually bring the truth that you know, or if there is something that you want to talk about, please let us know where you sourced it from. If it's the facts stated, if it's social media and people are just spouting out and it's rhetoric or things of that nature, we want to try to stay away from those type of things, but factual things and staying in the integrity. Be open-minded and understand that we don't all think alike. We all have difference of opinion, and be truthful. So that's the T. And finally, the S, share from your heart. Let's have the open conversations that people are not having. A lot of people just want to kind of glaze over the needs, but things are just spiraling down and getting worse. Well, if you recognize someone that's on the screen here with me, this is my husband, Eric Strong. And he has jumped on from my very first Code3 Conversations, and I kind of strong-armed him in staying. No pun intended with strong arming him. But because of the discussions went so very well that first time out, we've just continued it on this road together. So I'm going to let him actually say some things, and I'm going to get us set up so we can get rolling with our webinar and our website. Our PowerPoint is what I meant to say. So take it away, Eric, as I get set up.
Oh, you just want to toss it to me,
Yeah,
put me on the spot.
absolutely.
I will just say this. I mean, I think, some of the comments and some of the topics that have been brought to us have been very interesting. Um, they have brought up some very robust dialogue. And, one of the things I can do is I can appreciate that. This platform, as you said, is not for everybody that thinks alike. This
Mm-mm.
platform is not for concurrence. This platform is for those of us that want to have those conversations, have that dialogue respectfully, of course, but to ask those hard questions. Because one thing that I can tell you that from CC and I, you will get, and other people that we bring on the panel, you will get the candid answers, not the canned answers, not the, well, law enforcement is always doing a great job. And, we're going to talk about some of the experiences that we've had and have seen. And I invite you, come on, let's have that conversation. Let's do it.
Code3 Conversations. So for those of you who don't know what Code3 and how that came about, when you see the black and white cars rolling down the street very fast with the lights going and you hear the siren, that's actually us rolling Code3. By that, we mean it is an emergency. We are actually urgently getting to wherever we are to help. Hopefully, it's being used in a proper way to actually get to a call or respond to someone in need. So I believe that we need these Code3 conversations in order to turn this ship around with the division between law enforcement and the community. And I think we can actually get there together, but it takes a group effort. So we're going to kick it off with our conversations. I've already gone over the house rules, but we're going to take this screen by screen and go through these 4 topics for this particular episode. And let's have that discussion. So let's see what the curtain's going to reveal for us. Our first topic, as if I haven't seen this PowerPoint, right, is qualified immunity. So I had a person comment, and I don't know if they're sitting in the audience. I see people still loading, so I don't know if they're here, but this particular person commented about qualified immunity and the fact that it should be removed for officers. Their mindset was that it should not be something that officers are protected by. Now, qualified immunity is basically, in layman's term, I would say, an officer not being held responsible for their actions while they're in the uniform performing their duties, unless it violates, and this is where it gets tricky, established rules or established laws, clearly established. That's the word I was searching for. Clearly established violations of clearly established statutory and governmental laws, constitutional laws. I'm sorry. I lost my brain for a minute.
It says from certain lawsuits unless their conduct violates clearly established law.
Got it. And I know the clearly established is always in that piece, just about everywhere you read it. And to me, honestly, I think that gives a little too much wiggle room. Because if you say clearly established, then I can say, well, that particular thing is not clearly established. So that doesn't fit. And I think with a lot of, just me in general, with a lot of our laws and rules, there's always these little loopholes that can cause people to be able to, what should I say? It causes people to be able to say it doesn't fit for this situation or this person, but it does for this other one. If that makes sense. And you tell me if I'm sounding crazy when I say that, because I don't know where I actually stand on having this or not. And here's why. I don't make it a point to violate people's rights. You know, I'm not intentionally trying to do anything like that. That's not my goal. And I've never had to have this as a gauge on a disciplinary action or anything within my career. So that's not a elitist, elevated mindset. Well, I don't have to deal with that, but I've never experienced something where I was called to question for qualified immunity.
So where qualified immunity really comes in and has been challenged here recently is it doesn't protect a police officer. It doesn't make them immune to consequences. What it does is it protects their personal home. Like, in other words, let's just say that there's a tragic incident, it's a shooting, and the shooting is deemed out of policy, right? Or the shooting is even deemed criminal. The qualified immunity protects the family from going and saying, I want your house, I want your cars, I want to take everything that you own personally. And basically the person or the entity that is covering that is the city or county or the government agency that you work for. And there's a lot of people out there that is saying, hey, we need to make law enforcement personally accountable for their actions.
I think
I
if it
guess I'm
stings,
clarifying that before I kind of get into that on like whether what I think about it. I mean, I just want to say to that answer that I kind of add some.
yeah. No, you absolutely. And I think what the person, the commenter, if I was trying to crawl into their minds just because of the way that the comment came across, it was basically that it has to sting a little bit. And if you compare it to everything we're seeing in the news, in the headlines, the craziness that unfortunately hurts us when we read it, even more so, when you see that, I think people are thinking if you make it actually kind of hurt in the pocketbook, specifically to that person, then maybe the behavior would change.
Yes, and so here's where I'd like to give the audience and some people out there some scenarios to think about. And a couple of these I've been, personally either present or very soon responding or imagine that you're confronting somebody, right? And they reach into their pocket and they quickly pull their hand out and You think it's a gun, but it's a phone and you shoot them, right? Now that becomes a state of mind shooting. I was in fear for my life and they pulled up, but now here's the outroar. He just had a phone. She just had a phone. I get it. No, I understand. But based on the set of circumstances about why were you contacting this person? What was the sort of circumstances? And I remember clearly an incident that I was present on. I was literally pulling up right when it happened, where officers were confronting this guy who had gone on a pursuit and he had confronted, he crashed or whatever, they stopped and he's face to face with them and they're saying, show us your hand. And he literally reaches into his back pocket and he pulls out something really fast and it's shiny. I'm seeing all of this and it's shiny. It's at nighttime and an officer involved shooting happens and it ends up being a bottle of cologne.
Mm.
There are people out there that, of course, and especially family, that would be outraged, that would be saying the police officers killed this man for no reason. And no, it's not that. But here's the interesting thing about this case. At the time that we were looking for this guy, he had did a pretty brutal domestic violence, but he had a criminal record. And I remember that his wife was on the phone with dispatch and they were broadcasting that this guy had already said he told her, they're going to kill me tonight. I'm not going back to jail. I'm not going. In other words, she was saying all of this before it even happened and it's getting broadcast over the air. So, in other words, he knew what he was doing when he reached into this pocket and pulled out something shiny, so should an officer lose his home, his livelihood and everything that he owns because of an incident like that? And that's what I don't necessarily agree with. Now, if there's some malicious intent, if there's some nefarious activity that's going on, and we have video out there, and I will give it, and I will say this plainly, a George Floyd and a Derek Chauvin, I wouldn't care if you took everything that dude owned, right? That is just a lack of humanity for the way that happened. I mean, I can't justify why somebody would kneel on somebody for 9 minutes, feel them go limp, hear them saying they can't breathe, and you're just sitting there calmly. At some point, get them up, put them in
Put your hand in your pocket.
Looking
at the people telling you to get up.
Yes, that was just, having medical personnel. That was just a complete disregard for human life. So Absolutely. Things like that, no. And I think they need to be weighed individually. Now, I will go this. An officer that is violating the public's trust. And again, cases that I investigated, because now we have DNA of them molesting somebody within our care and custody. Absolutely not. That person should go to prison and they can lose anything and everything that they have. But I will also go back to this. Now we're saying also, what if that person has a wife and kids, right? Now, because of their actions that the wife and kids didn't know anything about, we are impacting their livelihood if she's helping pay the house, but we're suing and taking everything. So I think there's really got to be some balance, because what happens in law enforcement are split seconds, rapidly evolving dynamic situations. And one last example I want to give is, and we talked about this, California has passed a law right now that says, carotid restraint is now illegal. You cannot do it. You were in law enforcement for 30 years. And here's the way that I look at it. My wife, all of 5'2", 3.5. I'm sorry.
4.
5'3", 5'3.5". Anyway,
4.
She's in a dark alley doing everything that she's supposed to do to keep, society safe. And she's fighting with somebody my size. And let's say there's some gun retention, the gun gets knocked out of her hand, it's across the alley, and this, she's clearly, outweighed, outsized, and, and this guy starts going for the gun, and her only option is to jump on his back. And the only thing that she could do to stop this guy is put him in a carotid restraint, or else she's going to lose her life and other people are going to be in danger. Do I want her subjected to say, well, no, you technically broke the law, because we said no carotid restraint when that was the only option that she had in order to save her own life and to keep this guy from having a peace officer's gun fully loaded and getting the rest of the magazines and walking down the street and killing other people. I think they really have to be individual set of circumstances weighed, and it can't just be clearly, well, you violated a clearly established law, because a clearly established law is anything that's codified in the penal code or in one of the law books.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, and then we also have a question in the chat. I did not miss that, and we will be answering it. And I also have someone raising their hand to come on over to the panel. But I think in that regard, I think of things in a threshold method. And I hate to use this analogy, may he rest in peace, and I mean that sincerely, but Kobe Bryant. Years ago, there was a lot in the news about him, and he'd taken this woman to a hotel with him. My philosophy in that, and it only came from this because of what was in the news. And I said, there's a threshold. Kobe Bryant could have gone in that room and played old maid cards with that girl, never touched her. But it was the fact that he crossed that threshold. Now all bets are off, and he's in there, and anybody can put whatever twist they want to on it. I say we need to, as departments, threshold this. Stop letting these little minor things get swept under the rug. Your best friend's son is now on the department. So, that's my son. I play golf with his dad, so I don't want him to get in trouble. You sweep that under the rug. He now is empowered to do the next thing, and he piles on something else. And now you sweep that under the rug. And then you sweep that under the rug. I think we go to the main key points of qualified immunity without looking at the deeper threshold of where did this start, where it would even have to get to this point where this is in question. Why are people, like if I'm wearing a body-worn camera, I'm not really worried about what I'm going to say or do, because I'm not about to curse people out without it being warranted. And now I'm in a ground fight with someone. I'm not about to mistreat them and have something that's going to happen on that. It's just the way I do my job. I don't have to adjust because now my mic is hot. I think it goes even deeper before the qualified immunity type of thing goes. And just a blanket getting rid of it is not going to change the problem with excessive force. It's not going to change with the violations of people's rights. That's not, just because you get rid of it doesn't stop people from doing dumb stuff that they should not be doing.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I just want to piggyback on is you said blanket. You know what I mean? There are people that are upset, and they want it gone for everybody or every peace officer in every situation. But I also go to this with peace officers that are criticizing anybody and everybody that's even come up or thought about or even entertained this idea. I think one of the things that we have to do in the profession is say, why would people want to do this? Yeah. What have we done within the profession? What have we demonstrated within the profession? What set of circumstances would call for people to call for this? You know what I mean? And that's the part that I don't like about law enforcement is they seem to have no understanding of, oh, why would anybody ever say that? Oh, how dare them? Don't they know who we are? Don't they know what we do? Yeah, they do. But there's a reason for it, because there has been lots of incidents, and it impacts certain communities more than others, where people question this.
Absolutely. And I got your message a little too late. I brought you over on the panel. I can always send you back.
It's okay.
You can go ahead, and even if you're staying off camera, you can ask your question, and then we will address it. I'm assuming it's connected to qualified immunity.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, okay.
I can.
Yes, it is. I love the way you guys explain that, because are you saying basically it's qualified immunity is it allows officials basically room for error, like mistakes, like you're pursuing somebody and you accidentally shoot a baby or something crazy, really bad things that would, people would want to sue you for in the performance of your duties. Basically, it covers certain things like that, because we all do make mistakes. We can be the best deputy, but things happen like that. So basically, I like the way you explain it. That's what you're saying. Is that?
Yes, exactly. What it means is that you cannot be personally sued liable. Now, let me get it clear. You could be named on a lawsuit.
Absolutely.
Right. But that lawsuit and any damages don't come from your personal assets. It's pretty much
Right.
what it protects.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, are you remaining on with the panelists for us, or do you
Yes.
want to? Okay. I want to have your
Okay.
permission because I saw your question in the chat.
Yeah.
But we're going to actually move on from the qualified immunity slide, and we're going to go into our next one. And this one has to do with transparency. And it says transparency and open investigations. We often hear, and I say from the podium talk, about transparency and open investigations. And it's an open investigation, so we can't really discuss it. You know, that's an open investigation. And much like what I was saying, the clearly established violations, right? Or the clearly established laws, when I throw that out there, the public doesn't know if that's true or no. And I think we hear it so often, instead of actually true transparency, everything becomes an open investigation. So that's the way, well, we can't discuss it right now. Your thoughts on that? What do you think? That's just me. I think it's overly used. You
Yeah,
or
I think it's been a
Leslie?
blanket that we've been able to get away with for a long time. It has been a catchphrase that we have been able to get away with for a long time. And once that was said, very few people questioned it. But now what we're seeing is people are questioning it. Like,
Got
hey,
it.
you keep, for decades. I mean, we can go back to the 70s and the 80s, the 90s, whatever, oh, it's an open investigation. And for the, to protect the investigation. And, there's certain things. And yes, it is important to protect certain things in an investigation because in other words, if I know that we're looking for a green 1970 green Ford Maverick, right? And the suspect doesn't even know that we know what kind of car we're looking for. We don't want to tell him, hey, we're looking for a 1970 green Ford Maverick. And then he's like, oh, shoot, I got to hide this. So if the suspect doesn't know what we're looking for, it allows us to get closer to capturing a person. You don't want to give up too information. But I think where people are really crying out about this also are the law enforcement involved incidents that we hide behind a shooting, a use of force, a maliciously or anything, any kind of incident where whether it's malicious, nefarious, or whether it's just, it just looks bad.
Yeah.
And law enforcement is involved. People are saying, why is it taking so long?
Yeah.
Why is it, and one thing I want people to know is that having personally handled some of these things, everybody focuses on the law enforcement agency or the police or the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
When we oftentimes do our job very quickly, and then we hand it over to the district attorney's office.
Yep.
Now they're the ones that may take some time, and I'm probably not going to be very popular, or maybe with some DAs on this, but I will tell you, I remember handling a case where a woman in our custody, alleged that a deputy sexually assaulted her, and the department did everything right. They took her to the hospital. They had a SART exam, which is a sexual assault rape, exam for those people that don't understand what, test. They did everything right. They got her help. They got her the medical treatment that she needed. They tested everything. They found the deputy's DNA on her. On her body, not on her clothes. And even if it was on her clothes, and we're not talking about, he had some fingernail, whatever you want to call it, some crusty hands and his DNA flakes. No, they had his DNA. Yeah.
No.
I'm saying it's not like, I want to make sure that everybody knows that
It was his
he
DNA.
can't claim that he patted her down and used his hands and skin flakes were on her outer clothing. No, this was on the, and the investigation was presented. It sat with the district attorney for a year and a half. What more this was years ago. I'm not talking about the current DA, I'm talking about, a decade plus ago. why does it take a year and a half when you have DNA evidence? So a lot of times people only see us as the representative of the judicial system because we're the ones that are driving the big black and white cars and we have the uniform on and we're the ones making contact with the public. But there are more components to this judicial process than just us. Our investigation was done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so just understand that, hey, our investigation was done. It's submitted to the DA's office, and that's who you should be asking for, information or updates. But most people don't know that.
And my philosophy on that, again, is the threshold method. Our presentation to the DA is only as good as what we reported and we initially saw. And so we're expecting, and we were talking earlier in the think tank about that gunslinger type of mindset. And yeah, I'm out here, hooking and booking and arresting people, but can you write the report that actually articulates what you did? And a lot of times they'll turn in some stuff that's like, dude, are you like adding things in? Because how did this happen? And you got from this point to that point within, 5 minutes. That's impossible when it's 45-minute distance. It's like the DA's office, yes, sitting on some things. We've experienced those type of things, but how good is that report that I'm turning over to them? And do I even have the elements of the crime to start with? Or was I trying to earn a badge of honor or courage? Or that's my thinking is going back to the threshold of that as well. And yes, everybody has their piece in that from my perspective.
I agree. But I think when we're talking about transparency, we're taking it up a notch to those decision makers that are deciding what they're going to share, whether it be that report or not. I mean, the police officer doesn't post their report,
No, I understand. But when you said that we hand it over to the DA's office, I'm just saying we need to be handing over good quality product that's truthful, absolutely. That isn't some skullduggery.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leslie.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think it's getting better? It seems like they're getting information out faster now to the public. Was there some kind of policy that changed that? Because you used to not get any kind of information with shootings and things. Or is it? Am I
there? I think, Leslie, in my opinion, the fact that there's so many cameras out there, there are some rules and laws, and I can't quote them right now, that are coming to how long an agency has to release footage. They have to release it in a certain amount of time.
Right.
But I think it's getting better where it comes to footage, but not necessarily reports or other things and evidentiary,
Oh, okay.
that kind of stuff.
And I think I see still a lot of tap dancing though, Leslie. I would say, the information's out there and the videos are there, but it's like what can and cannot be shared. And sometimes I wonder who's writing the material for the people that are standing at the podiums. Like, who do you have writing this? Because you got lost, you jumped from line 2 to 3. I don't know. It's not always as polished as I think it is. But as far as transparency and open investigations, I think leaning on open investigations to deflect is a problem. If that's just to keep the people in the public, we're going to move on and it's an open investigation because you don't want to speak about it. It's a closed investigation now, and you can speak about it, but you don't want to because it could put us in a bad light. I think that's why we stay stuck in some of the problems that we're in as well.
Like the
and there's so many there's so many more components to transparency than just an incident. Let's talk about our policies. You know what I mean? What is our policy, as we talk about all the time for traffic stops? You know what I mean? And so in other words, how does the public know if we're doing it right, if we're doing it the way that we've been trained, if they don't know what our procedures or policies are? Right. Let's talk about statistics. How many complaints are inside of our jails? What are people complaining about? The public should know. And hey, you've had 4,000 complaints about cold food. You know what I mean? So, of course, why would they be? So in other words, there's a lot of other transparency issues, statistics, sometimes just numbers, how many uses of forces, how many arrests have you had, how many,
You've had molded bread served to 3,000 plus inmates.
Yeah.
In 2021. And
Yeah,
now
why
we
sweep
have
it under the rug? Why put the person
yeah.
that found it under investigation? I don't understand. I mean, let's be transparent. Anyway, I digress. I digress.
Reminds me of the Epstein
Absolutely.
files. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my
I'm
God.
joking. I'm joking.
Hey, Code 3 Conversations.
Yeah,
These are current events that we are
yeah,
actually
yeah,
living
yeah, yeah.
through.
We're gonna move
So
off of transparency. We're gonna move
we
off of that one
Yeah,
right now.
we're going to move on. And we have someone from the audience who I will not, for the audience sake, I will not disclose your name. You can, that way you can be open with your questions. And it says, what are your thoughts on law enforcement dealing with mental health situations? This is a huge one. And thank you to the person who actually posted it. But I'm going to repeat the question and then let's talk about it. What are your thoughts on law enforcement dealing with mental health situations? I'm going to say, just to kick this off, that I don't know that I'm in a mental health situation until I know that I'm in a mental health situation. Sometimes we respond to calls and we don't know right off the bat that that's what we're dealing with. We're not immediately able to diagnose that someone has a mental health a mental health issue, I would say. And I'm going to circle back around after we kind of roundtable this, and I can actually speak to a particular incident that went very, very well, and it was dealing with someone with a mental health issue. So, what are your thoughts on dealing with mental health situations? Either one of you.
I have a lot of
well,
thoughts. Let's see, you want to go? I have a lot to say on this one.
well, we deal with it all the time in custody, and on the streets, and that's a oh wow, it's we used to have a med team, if you remember that,
Mm-hmm.
and they to me they were worthless because it takes so long to get there. They weren't available. They were specialized in
Ding, 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 ding.
dealing with mental illness, but you have to have a level, is this all different things, level of maturity. You have to know common sense. You have to know what not to say sometimes. And I think we got some experience dealing with in the jails, but then you get some life experiences where, I don't know, a lot of us have been around people who have had mental illness and, certain questions where you can tell they haven't had their medication, and you can ask questions regarding that. But it's a difficult thing, you try to de-escalate things, and it takes a lot of experience to do that. A lot of deputies don't have that, but it's a lot to say about that. I'm just curious what you guys, Eric, what you have to add to that.
You know, to both of your points, oftentimes you go to a call and you don't know that you're going to be dealing with somebody with a mental health issue or maybe even somebody that's under the influence, until you get there and you start observing it. The question is, what are your thoughts on law enforcement dealing with mental health situations? My thought is this. We are the first responders. We're the ones that are closest and typically can get there the quickest.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we have become the de facto or the default response because who else is going to respond?
Right.
Where is the Department of Mental Health? Do they have cars? Do they have a radio? Are they out there 365, 24/7? Are they out there on Christmas and Thanksgiving? Are they out there at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning? You see, mental health crisis does not happen from 9 to 5, but that's when
Mm-hmm.
our DMH people are typically working, unless they're working in our jails, and so when somebody's in a mental health crisis, and let's just say that we know it, I talked about it a little bit earlier, hey, that person that is, we get the radio call of a family member saying, hey, my son, my daughter, my husband, my uncle, my brother, whoever it is in mental health crisis. Hey, they haven't taken their medication. Hey, they're in psychosis right now. Or how about we just get the call that says, hey, there's a guy in the middle of the street naked,
Right.
trying to swing at cars with a golf club. Well, we've been around for a minute. We should know that that's probably a mental health or maybe even a drug-induced kind of, psychosis. So who is going to get there and who is going to respond? The question is law enforcement properly trained and equipped to handle
Yeah.
mental health
That
situations? I
part.
think we can do a lot better job at properly training our people. I think we can do a lot better job, and I'm just going to throw this out there. What do they call that when you get a plug in? You get a plug. I'm
A
gonna throw out a
plug.
plug.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're throwing out a plug. You're going to
I
steal my
am.
thunder.
I am actively. No, no. I'm gonna
Oh,
get a plug in. Actively. I am actively engaged and collaborating with people that are part of the behavioral health, mental health community industry to bring them into our cars. And I'll tell you what,
oh,
as sheriff, I can start a pilot program right away where they will come and ride with us for free.
mm,
A pilot program. And I'm getting that plug in there because here's the thing, that's what we
You're what
need.
you're getting
We're,
way ahead of yourself, sir. I was saving that toward the end,
oh,
but
well, we're talking about mental health. I mean,
put
it's
your
a question.
plug back
So,
in your
so
pocket.
okay, I'm gonna put it back in my pocket. Okay, so now let me go back to this. As Leslie stated in our jails, right now, the Los Angeles County jail system has the largest mental health hospital in the country because we house so many mentally ill people, and there's
right.
something wrong with that.
Yeah.
That means there are not other resources or services out there, or it means we're not utilizing the other resources and services that are out there. But yeah, I don't know who else is going to be there to respond. And then a lot of times, I won't say all the time, I won't give you a percentage, but sometimes when you are dealing with people that are mentally ill or in psychosis, the reason the family is calling is because it's gotten beyond their capacity to handle it. And so what
Mm-hmm.
happens is this: a family knows that a member of their family has mental health issues. And they know, and they can typically see early on when they stop taking their medication or they ran out of medication or they're starting to see signs. But typically the family doesn't want to call us because they know if they call, sometimes it ends up being a bad situation. And so they try to
Mm-hmm.
talk to the person. They try to do these
Right.
interventions. They try to get them their medication. They try to call their doctor. They go through all these steps. And then 2 or 3 or 4 weeks later, 5 weeks, however long it takes, this person is in psychosis and now they're threatening the family or becoming violent. And now they call us when it's way too late. So, and that's the reason that they wait so long. They don't want to call us because they don't want to see their loved one hurt. They don't want to see their loved one go back to jail, or they don't want to see, and I talk about it all the time. We've been trying to arrest our way. I mean, right now, people fear that jail and incarceration and law enforcement is the only solution.
Mm.
Yeah.
So they wait too long, and we get to a critical point where it's almost inevitable that some type of use of force is going to be involved. So anyway,
So
yeah,
to
there's a
that
lot to it.
point, I worked at the Twin Towers Correctional Facility, and I arrived there in 2017. And at that time, there were probably, I want to say three, maybe shy, it probably was 5 of 8 floors on one tower, because it's called Twin Towers because there's two big towers. And there were probably 5 levels at the time that I arrived there where it was mentally ill at a high, what we call high observation. The other side had maybe about a floor that had the moderate observation. So those that are with less, or they were diagnosed with less of a mental illness than the ones that are really in crisis.
Mm.
When I left, the entire tower that used to have 5 was full, and it was bleeding over into the other tower. I left there. Wait for it. I was only there for probably not even 6 months, because I believe I got there at toward the end of August. It might have been the end of July, if my memory serves correctly. I left there in January of 2018. The rate at which mental illness and those mentally incarcerated increased over that time was horrendous.
Mm.
I'm going to switch reels in this quick story. As a young 5'4", Eric, 5'4", very fit deputy back then, I responded to a call, and it came out just as this brother of the sister had locked himself in the room and he had a knife. He was known to take knives out of the kitchen. Now, where that pings in some people's brain, well, that could probably tell you something, or it could just say that he just likes knives.
Hmm.
We get to the call, and for me, my deputies were ready to run in. Let's just go get this guy. Let's do this. Let's do that. But he was locked in his room. Out of the box thinking, we were able to make a call, have dispatch call in the house, and the sister came out. And her words to us is that my brother often has contact with law enforcement, and she was scared. He has a mental illness. He hides knives, he hides weapons, anything he can get his hands on, screwdrivers. He puts them under his mattress, he puts them in the closet. So she's kind of giving me where he's storing all this stuff. Call me crazy, but I took a sheet of paper and I told her, draw me a layout of the house. When I walk in the front door, what do I see? She says, you walk into the living room, and then just to your left, there's an opening that leads to the hallway. Okay, where's his room? It's at the front, right where that window is. Now, mind you, we're slightly away from the front of the house. And suddenly, who appears in the window but the brother? And he's banging on the window and he's yelling. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be interesting, because if he's locked in, how do we get in? Long story short, we found out, and I started asking her questions about the brother, and we learned that he loved the Dodgers. One of the guys on my team, one of the deputies, he was a Dodger fan. So I said, this is what we're going to do. I need you to go over there and make contact with him in the window. We're going to take the door off the hinges. The deputies looked at me like I had two heads. First of all, I have the permission of the sister to go in the house. It's her home. So I'm legally able to be there. She tells me, yeah, whatever you got to do to keep my brother safe, keep him safe. We end up getting that guy out, literally taking the doors off the hinges. I'm not making this up. And I gave every deputy an assignment. He's going to come running at us when we open this door. You know he's going to do it. So I need you two to be able to grab him. I just want you to place him against the wall. If you got to spray him first, because he's barreling too fast. And we had a plan. Everybody had a role to play.
Right.
When I tell you that my lieutenant called me into the office and said, what is this? And he had my report on his desk. And I said, what do you mean? He says, I was standing in that hallway, Strong, and I could smell the OC spray, because they did end up having to spray him, unfortunately. But I would rather them spray him and subdue him than to do other harm. He says, right. Every step of this report you laid out for me. And it was like I was standing there with you. And he says, why can't we handle situations like that? Now, that's not to say that every single situation I'm sitting there going, draw me a map, and then actually going from there. But I think a lot of it comes in us pausing for a second and realizing that we're not mental health professionals, that it could possibly be a mental health crisis. They say that when someone is having a diabetic episode, they appear to be drunk. If we're immediately thinking, everybody's drunk, which is probably safe to assume, because let's keep some common sense in that situation. If that person appears to be drunk, could they be having a medical episode? They absolutely can. With the thoughts of how law enforcement officers should handle mental health issues, it is a huge undertaking. But as Eric, you're correct. We're the first ones there. So now I say, at least use some common sense. Everything is not that everybody is like pounce on them and it's like 5 and 6 of us piling on top of them. At some point, you got to use a little bit of common sense of the guy swinging the golf club in the middle of the road.
Right.
And let me just throw in a couple of things with that. You know, I remember being in a training. Well, let me back up. You mentioned 2017. I was in Twin Towers. I was working there probably 4.5, 5 years before that, probably, just to give a point of reference and contact. And when I was there, the top 3 floors were the mental health high observation, and 7 being the highest, 6, and then, you know, step down, and then 5. And then you might have still had some people in 4, you know, but from 3 to 5, you know, to 7, and then, you know, so we see how fast, you know, it's growing. But I remember being in a training one day, and I have to say this, I have to give credit to those people that were around me early in my career and taught me well. You know, my TOs, the senior officers that I was around, and they taught me, hey, listen, when somebody is talking in a way that doesn't make sense, meet them where they are.
Yeah.
So I'm in a training one day, and part of the discussion, and it was a facilitated conversation, and one of the discussions was, hey, you got a guy that's out there talking about spaceships. How do you do it? And I remember this guy, spaceships don't exist in 80. I am not, that dude's going to get beat down. And he's going to the back of my car no matter what. If he doesn't want to go there, and he's just going on and on and on like he's this big, bad, tough dude. And I said, and we're in this facilitated conversation. And I said, dude, you're an idiot. I said, why would you, what is that going to prove? How does that make you feel more macho? And he's looking at me like, who are you? And, and I said, why do you need to, if a person's talking about spaceships and alien, maybe there's something going on there. How do you have no compassion? I said, obviously you don't have anybody in your family because if that's the way you would do it, then, hey, maybe if there was somebody in your family, then that's the way any law enforcement should even treat your uncle, brother, cousin, nephew, if they're in that situation. And my thing is, I'm going to talk to the person. I told him, I said, listen, hey, man, I know you need to get to that spaceship. The portal's in the back of my car. But in order for you to get in the portal and for you to go, you got to put these metal bracelets on. You know what I mean? And that's how, and he looked, and I've actually had this happen. He says, for real? I said, yeah. I said, yes. The spaceship, if that's where you want to go, I have the portal. And you know what he did? He turned around, put his hands back, said, I'm ready to go. We put him in the handcuffs. We put him in the backseat of the car. We take him to the mental health hospital. It was Augusta Hawkins back in those days. And they start the treatment process, but what's wrong with that? Nothing is wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. And I give absolute credit to the people that taught me, and whoever taught this guy that was in his class. I don't know his name. I can picture his face. I'm sorry, dude. You're an idiot. You have no compassion. And heaven forbid you get involved in something that maybe you end up losing, right? Because you're just this big value. He's going to go in the back of the car. Yeah, well, you could lose. And so I don't understand that mentality, because really what it comes down to, what's the goal? The goal is to get them in the backseat of the car and get them to the help that they need. And that should be the overwhelming goal, is to get people wherever they need to go, not to just try to beat them in submission.
And so go ahead, Leslie.
Sorry. No, I'm glad you said that. We take, for the public who doesn't know that, everybody doesn't go to jail. We take them in both those instances. You can take them to the hospital. It's called a 5150 hold. All of the jails are full. There's some people who, haven't really committed a crime. So take them to the
Unfortunately,
hospital.
they keep closing those hospitals.
That's true.
They're open, they're closed. They're open, they're closed. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. And then it also has to do, because I had an incident where someone at the hospital wouldn't sign to actually transfer this person. The doctor has a whole lot of weight in that too, and was haggling back and forth with us, not willing to sign off so they could go to a location, a facility. So that's also stuff that people don't know behind the scenes. In the chat, I see, do you think this needs to be a policy change because of the need to have experienced mental health professionals to respond to these crises? The short answer to that is that yes, we had a mental health evaluation team. I don't know how strong they are now, but it used to be hours before you would get them. I mean, I remember sitting on the couch with a woman who was suicidal, and it was 2 hours sitting there talking with her, keeping her calm until someone actually got there to speak with her. So we do have, and they, at least when I was on patrol as a young deputy, there was the MET team, like what Leslie actually spoke to. And then someone said, I like the pilot program idea, Sheriff. Love it. Another one, we collaborate with our mental health professionals and started training our chaplains in crisis interventions. I really love that, because that chaplain piece, I can agree. When I had chaplains that would be in custody, I relied on them heavily. And I would take them from some of the most basic things. As a watch commander, I'd be like, hey, can you ride with me on this particular thing? And at Twin Towers, I even had a program called Inmates of Concern. And so we partnered with the chaplains, the mental health team, the medical, and we started doing rounds, like what you do in a hospital. And we were going to the inmates who had the most standout. The deputies had to send in every Monday a report of who the inmates within their particular floor that were of most concern. And we would do rounds. So I love that the person said we collaborate with mental health professionals and start training our chaplains in crisis intervention. I know that the mental health topic. You guys are fired off, and I know my team's going to grab all of those comments so that we can actually bring them on to our other Code3 conversations. And I want to take this moment to invite those of you that are actively in the chat to join us. Every second and fourth Wednesday, we'll be sitting here chopping these type of things up. And I have a special surprise. I think my husband stole my thunder slightly, but I have a special surprise at the end because we are actually inviting you to be part of the change. The recent Charlotte situation is a situation where mental health was involved. And now they are handcuffing them and taking them to jail with no regard to the mental health issue. And they are now cutting the funding. The Baker Act policies are not consistent across the U.S. And the sad part about it is, and I've always said this, the first things to go are the resources that we need the most. We cut youth programs, we cut mental health, we cut certain medical concerns, because guess what? Those are the people that are the lesser of the society, and they have to just pay their penance and their dues. And I get it, if that is how you feel, but I think we're too much in the weeds thinking that certain human beings are less than. Because I don't care how much time they spend. Once they're out, you're still going to demonize them, and they're considered criminals. It's basically what society does to them, and they get repeat demonized all over again. Those resources are kind of that threshold that I was talking about. If we have some other resources and means for rehabilitating people, and we stop cutting funding and hiding behind, oh, we need more funding, when I know firsthand the funding is being mishandled personally.
Much of it is.
After being $30 million budget and having some of it come up missing suddenly. That's a whole nother story for another day. But the things that are cut the most are the resources that we need the most. And where mental health is concerned, it is a key. It is an actual key. And it's the only way out of this, is not necessarily immediately just saying everything's a mental health issue, or immediately saying everything is a crime. It's evaluating each of those situations that we respond to and acting accordingly, and getting the people that we need in place for that. And I mirror the person in the chat who says, I like that idea of having that pilot program. I do too, because we do need other people helping us along the way.
And let me just jump in real quick, because for those people that are listening, I believe the person in the chat may be talking about the woman that was stabbed in Charlotte on the train or the bus, I believe. And the person had a history of mental health crisis and criminal history. But I want to go back to something that I think we talked about a little bit earlier, not on this particular podcast, but I give the example of our society has been created around law and order, and about who people that do something wrong, boom, they mentioned it, we just put handcuffs on them and take them to jail without considering what happened. And I go to this analogy, you have a vase in your home, and it's a very valuable vase that's been passed on from generation to generation. It's in your living room, and you tell your kids, do not throw the ball, do not horseplay, do not run in this living room, because if you break this vase, there's going to be consequences. And what do? They throw the ball, they run around, they knock over the vase, and they break it. Absolutely. Is there consequences because you told them what to do, what not to do, and you express the value of this? But now let's take that same child, your son, your daughter, who you have no knowledge has anything wrong, and they're walking by that vase, they have a seizure, or they faint, or they pass out, and they fall over and they break the vase. Do you even care about the vase? Or are you more concerned with the health of your loved one, of your child, and now you need to figure out what's going on? Are you sure later on you might be like, oh my God, the vase is broken, but is there going to be a consequence for it? No. And so, yes, a stabbing, something like that, that's critical. Yes, there should be a consequence for it. But the reality of it is when do we as a society, as law enforcement, as even the judicial system, the ones that are out there 365, 24/7, start caring about the person? And that's what we need to start doing. Everybody's caring about the action, but not caring about the person. So, that's something that I think that we really need to get to, where we start looking at Why is this person in the middle of the street naked with a golf club swinging at cars? We got to look at that and say, why are they there? As opposed to saying, oh, he's got a golf club. He vandalized that car. Oh, he vandalized 9 cars. That makes it a felony vandalism. Oh, he didn't put the golf club down when I told him to. It's assault on a police officer. That's where we are. That's the way we've been handling things, when we need to start saying, what got them there? You know,
and I think for
so,
some of us, that's how we did our job. It wasn't something that, you know, because a lot of times you tell people and you hear about training, and we need so many trainings and we need more policies. And those words are always thrown out. But I also think we need to applaud some of those deputies who do the job well, who don't rush in. The ones that get attention are the ones that are beating people over the head. Sadly, you don't hear the good things that have happened. And unfortunately, the numbers are dwindling for some of the people that in the community that look like me. We don't have law enforcement officers going to take these positions. They don't even want any part of it. And the numbers have dropped drastically from double digit to single. It's not getting any better. And the people that really have the heart piece, even outside of that particular situation, that want to do this job, they're jaded because all they ever see is negative. And we need more people willing to get involved. And I'm from a neighborhood that everybody, you know, CPT, you know, being living from Compton, immediately they think you're a thug and you're, you know, whatever. It's not necessarily the case. And sometimes those are the best people to have in those uniforms because they get the best of both worlds. They have also experienced some things that they can actually speak to. And you'll pause for a second and you see your mama and your grandpa and people that actually are in those situations. In the more affluent neighborhoods, because I can get on this soapbox all day long, they don't have those experiences. So all they know is to ride down on somebody and gaffle up everybody, and everybody goes to jail. It literally becomes a problem for sure. But in the interest of time.
Can I just jump in real quick? Because I saw one of the commenters talking about the budget being rerouted. I would gladly give up some law enforcement budget for some DMH proper services. You know, and that's one of the things that a lot of people were talking about. They called it the defund the police. Listen, if you're going to give up the service, if you're going to get the cars and you're going to get the professionals out there that are going to be out there 365, 24/7, I would gladly help with the training and resources.
There you go, stealing my thunder again. There you.
I'm sorry. Well, I don't know. You got to tell me what you're going to say.
Quit giving away secrets.
I got to read your mind ahead of time. I'm sorry.
Power down there, you. Power down there, Tonto. So we're going to move on to our next slide. If I can get, so this is a heavy one. In the recent news, Attorney Rob Bonta, I always get his name wrong, Bonta, Bonta? Did I say his name right? Bondi. No, not Bondi.
Bonta.
That lady.
Bonta. B-O-N-T-A. Bonta.
B-O-N-T-A.
Attorney General.
He actually made the statement they are provided spoiled, moldy, and nutritionally inadequate meals. Food is our basic need, people. Let me take you on a little journey very quickly. I was the unit commander over the food services unit. In September of 2021, my sergeant walked into my office and tossed a bag on my desk, and I think I can show you that bag. This bag was tossed on my desk, and I thought it was a joke. Because there was no way on God's green earth that someone human was being served something that looked like this. This bread literally looked exactly like that. It was the day, I took it the same day, the picture on my desk. This had been served, hear me clearly, to over 3,000 inmates on one of our North location facilities. I immediately got on the phone and I contacted their operations staff and let them know that we would be handling and grabbing all of those lunches back, rerouting everything. Everything went out on main line. I was livid because I remember saying, there's no way that this happened in LA County. And she was like, no, ma'am, it's at one of our facilities. Human beings, and I won't take a whole lot of time on this, but you gave this to human beings. When I call my staff in and I start asking questions, the main key manager, over the entire operations, 2 levels down from me, told me, well, I told them to get rid of that stuff Monday. It was served on Tuesday and Wednesday. This was one of the things that was used in the case that I was placed under falsely and accused of being a bully and from Compton, grabbing someone, looking for tattoos. After reporting what you're seeing on this screen, along with 2 supervisors, a manager and a commander, I was placed under a fake investigation and transferred from my assignment. This bread was one of those things reported in September. I was placed under investigation in October. Also on the heels of my husband announcing that he was running for sheriff. If his face is familiar to some of you in the audience, it's because Eric Strong ran that year. He announced in August that he would be running, and he ended up being on the ballot for the position of sheriff. I became the political target. Human beings were served what you're seeing on the screen. Hear me clearly that I say served, because the chief had the unmitigated gall to say, well, if it was served, did that mean that they consumed it? Because I put food in my dog's bowl and he walks away from it, it doesn't mean that maybe the food is bad, he shouldn't be consuming it. But to say that it was okay to hand anything that looked like this to him, and I get passionate about it because it burns me up. I am not the judge and jury of those who are housed in our facilities.
Right.
But all too often, we want to demonize them because they're not like us. They're not normal in our minds. It doesn't matter. And we did extensive studies about the best way to serve the meals. I did videos actually showing this process does not work. We need to make some changes. I presented that in packaging and policies, as everybody's always talking about policies, and great for them. I did a unit order for the captain of that facility, and it fell on deaf ears. I presented the video. I did the unit policy for them, and it went absolutely nowhere. That was back in 2019. Fast forward 2021, my husband's running for sheriff, and this gets served, and this is a part of why I was retaliated against. No one wanted to hear about it. I went on Fox 11. You can look it up, Lieutenant Whistleblower. And I was not quiet about it, and I have not been quiet since then. This was served to human beings. And now there is a current lawsuit filed against the department, the very same department, because of inhumane conditions within those same buildings that we just spoke about. And the food is being spoken about. They are provided spoiled, moldy, and nutritionally inadequate meals.
Wow. It's gotten worse.
And we had a program where I took the 4 lunch meats that had been served for decades, and we added 12 others and did a taste test with the people within that building where our headquarters office was. When we got the study back, the top 4 that were the worst of the worst were the 4 that they had been serving for decades. And I'm here to share this with all of you in my audience, that the pride of the managers was that, well, we only spend $2.86 for 3 meals per inmate. But you talk about money waste and people talk about their tax dollars. We had one inmate on Catalina Island. They were spending $50 a day on that one inmate, buying food from the hospital and getting taxed for it. I ended up telling my supervisors, I'm going to need my budget increased from 30 million to 255 million in a conference meeting. And they said, what are you talking about? I said, well, if we can spend $50 a day on that one inmate, by my calculation and our current housing numbers, we should be spending that for all of them and just ship in meals. This is the behind the scenes. This is what was served to humans. And I will get off my soapbox because this was what derailed my career.
Wow.
So
it activated your destiny.
Yes, it did.
Because look at where you are right now. Code 3 Conversations came out of all of that. So
exactly. I wish
You
it had
know,
just come
I,
out without all that other stuff. I could have missed the bad
you,
side
you
of it.
know, it's like I tell people all the time when we're talking about the happenings within law enforcement. The real problem, and I think somebody put it in the chat, they talk about it's up to leadership. The real problem with complaints, with uses of force, with investigations is not necessarily the investigation. People say, oh, well, how can we expect the police to investigate the police? Well, they can. They do. We do. I worked internal affairs. We did it all the time. We did a very good job at it.
Mm,
What people don't understand sometimes is it's the decision maker.
mm,
The investigation has the information there. But when you have decision makers that are making decisions based on nepotism, cronyism, or just being vindictive and going the opposite and giving CC 30 days off for firing her and giving their buddy off no discipline or 2 days or whatever just to make it look good for the same similar type of things. The problem is with the decision makers. So, the issue with
mhm.
this is, first of all, this should have never happened. There's too many processes, there's too many safeguards, there's too many safety nets within the department, within food services, because I know all of the work that you put in to allow this to happen. This was laziness. This was a lackadaisical mindset and not caring. But let's just say this. Let's just say that a mistake happened. Everybody was doing everything they're supposed to do. And, you know, something got passed and you get this moldy food.
Hmm.
Goes back to the decision maker. Once somebody caught it and knew about it, why did they continue it? Because I think part of this, CC, was somebody very high up, knew about it
No, no, no,
a
no,
couple
no.
days
For
before it happened.
somebody's the
Okay, for
top
somebody's
manager, and
knew
then
about it
three
and
other
allowed it
managers
to
were
happen,
involved.
right? So
Yes.
so they knew about it and allowed it to happen. Now, let's talk about this. You do everything you're supposed to do. You report it up the chain,
Mhm.
and now the decision makers for, well, just because they got it doesn't mean they ate it. Doesn't mean
Mhm.
they consumed it. That's the part for me that really bothers me because it says you don't care. Because I always go to this. If that was your brother, sister, uncle, nephew, whoever that food would be served to, would you be reacting and feeling the same way? See, that's where that whole us versus them thing comes in. Oh, well, they're just
Mm,
inmates. They're just inmates. No, they're not just inmates. They're somebody's son, father, uncle, brother, daughter, niece, mom, whatever it is. Um, so
human
that's the
beings.
part that really bothers me. But I will say this, and I don't know if I'm saying this appropriately or in the good time, as you say, because I keep stealing your thunder.
Yeah, don't
You
say
move
it.
this up. You move this. I'm saying it. I'm saying it. You can't tell me. You move this up the chain, and you were the one put under investigation.
Yeah.
You did things to bring in better food. You
Mhm.
lowered uses of force. You lowered gassing of deputies. You lowered assaults. You lowered complaints. And if people don't understand what a complaint is, it is hours and hours and hours of labor of people putting in to address these complaints. You lowered all that. That means you freed up resources,
Yeah.
right? And what happened? They put you under investigation and they unraveled it and they undid it all,
Mm,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so let's just say this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm gonna get my not a plug, but maybe it's a dig. We know who Alex Villanueva is. We know that you and I had a history of him for 15 years, and he was vindictive, vengeful, and he was just not a good person. He was not a very nice person, and he made lots of bad decisions. And so, leadership issue. But CC, I know firsthand that you gave this to the new guy.
I did.
You handed this to him before he even took office. And what he said, oh, you know what? We're going to fix this. We're going to take care of this. But here we are 3 years later, and the exact same thing is still happening. So what changes did he really make? So not only did you give this
right.
to him, I mean, personally,
Hmm.
personally handed this to Bob Luna. Hey, Bob, at a picnic, at a park, in emails, because he wanted my support. And he was very, very responsive. And yeah, hey, Eric, hey, CC, let's go out. Let's sit down and have dinner. While he wanted my endorsement and support, you handed him this. He had it. So for
Right.
this to still be part of the lawsuit, if you ask me, he's no different than Villanueva. He's just quieter.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's the real
I
talk. I
agree.
mean, Yeah,
Mhm.
and so he had the information, yeah, and fix it, and he chose to do nothing about it. And
And
now,
it,
guess what? And now,
Mhm.
and I'll just say this: people, people, not inmates, people in our care and custody are being living in filth,
hmm,
being served moldy food. People are dying. People aren't getting their medical care. These are people. And you're okay with this. Obviously, you're okay with this as a leader because what have you done to change it? When you had this even before, put it like this. Let's get rid of the medical care. Let's get rid of the dirty, filthy. You could have at least had the food fixed. I mean, in other words, you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
you could have had at least one thing fixed because you had that information firsthand from the person that did the work. And that's what's very frustrating to me.
Mhm.
You know,
and I mean, just imagine the frustration of when people start texting me this article and they're saying,
mhm.
look, there's a lawsuit about the food. And I'm thinking, I've been yelling and screaming, and I went back through posts from when this first happened. I talked about this food literally in some of my first videos at the end of 2021. And hats off to the guy for filing the lawsuit and bringing it to the attention. I don't need the accolades, but I can't give back all those years between 2021 and 2025 where it continued. And there are
Mhm.
people that still to this day keep me abreast of what's happening, and it's gotten worse. As a matter of fact, the very sergeant that was doing the inquiry in my case that got this ball rolling against me is now at that location. I know
Failing
she doesn't care.
at the location, failing. Proof.
Exactly. I know that she doesn't care about those particular people or whatever they look at them as. Here is my take, and I know we're here. I have a couple of the surprise announcement that I want to still do. Here is my take on this overall situation, and we'll have to. And my team, if you all are listening, those of you who are in the audience side, please keep me on it. That our last topic, we're going to put a pin in it for our next time, and we invite everybody that's on listening to come back for that. But here's my take on this overall thing. To have this come full circle, it pangs my heart. You would
Mhm.
think that I'd be able to celebrate and say, see, I told you. I tried to tell you. I handed it to you, Sheriff. I gave you all of the information. You said that you were going to get back to me. You're going to review my case. And I gave you tons of documents and email. What, what upsets me the most is that people continue division.
Mhm.
I am not judge or jury for someone who has been arrested for a crime. And we know that there's a lot of unfairness in how that arresting and the how people are sentenced. There's a whole lot that is swayed in the wrong direction.
Right.
So for me to be called a thug, mistreating people with disabilities, grabbing a guy, assaulting him looking for tattoos, being overly militant in my demeanor toward the people that I was actually supervising. I had 65 locations all over Los Angeles County and a $30 million budget that the 33rd sheriff allowed $15 million to be hidden because the Board of Supervisors would give $15 million back because they weren't going to let inmates starve. So you played games with the money. And then the next guy coming in said, oh, that's horrible, and listened to the whole entire story and allowed it to keep going. Hear me when I say this, and this is not a plug as Eric says it. 2 days ago, my husband surprised me. He had been talking about this and entertaining it, but he is actually running again on this coming election. It gave me angst initially because in
Mhm.
my gut, I said, I have to relive all of this. But technically, over these years, I've been reliving it anyway because I haven't stopped talking about it. And the
Mhm.
best thing that I could have given as a gift to myself is to speak out immediately
Mhm.
because now I have the proof that I was already speaking about these very things. And 4 whole years later, because on October 5th of this year, it'll be 4 years that I've still been in and a pending lawsuit, still going, haven't even completed. But I will share with all of you that on April 12th of 2025, I won my arbitration. It was deemed that my contractual rights were violated and that I had been disciplined without just cause. But 13 deputies or law enforcement officers within my agency since January have taken their own lives. And none of these people, with the stacking of the lies against me, thought and considered that, what if that had been me? What if I had been that dark with such a stellar career just totally crashed for no reason other than political backlash? These are the type of peoples that are sitting in these top seats, making these decisions. We can talk about mental health and all the things that are a problem. And yes, those are easy fixes. Hear me clearly when I tell you that they are. It's about caring about people, and no one who has ever worn this uniform, who cares about people, you will never hear about them in those headlines. The ones that could care less, that I'm a gunslinger, I got this job, a lot of them probably have never had a fight in their lives because they grew up in those areas where that doesn't happen.
Right.
And now you have been given a badge and a gun and a whole lot of responsibility, and you're not using it wisely. It pangs my heart that human beings, I don't care what they did, it wasn't my business, but 3,000 plus human beings were served this kind of food. And for a chief to sit up and say, well, how do we know? They may not have consumed it. It is the most dismissive and disgusting thing that anyone could ever say or do to another human being. And I want to take this time to say that if you are a voter and you're listening in my audience, I would encourage you, and you live in LA County, the name is not a hard one to forget. This guy has worked every aspect of law enforcement that there is, from youth programs all the way up to the office right outside of the sheriff. But here's the problem. His intellect keeps him out of the running. He's not easily manipulated. And sometimes people don't want in power intellect. Because you can't play it has to be a clearly established law. You can't play the games of putting those extra words in that allow you to manipulate. Our mental health crisis is a mess. It needs to be cleaned up. We can't arrest our way out of this situation. Eric says that all the time. We can't arrest our way out of the homeless and the mental health illness crisis. There's no way we can do it. They need resources.
Right.
They do. And I'm telling you, hear me clearly, my last point. The money and all of we need more funding. Our staffing is really low. We do need more officers. But we also need to make sure that the ones we have are in the right positions and they're not just stacked on top of each other, working cushy positions for a great schedule. We also don't need to play games and hide 15 million of this unit commander, hide 15 million of Lieutenant Strong's money. And she has to be watching because she's watching everything and catches it. And then we're upset with her because she speaks about it. If you're mismanaging money and not handling the staffing properly, stop telling the community that we are low staffed, and that's just a blanket statement like an open investigation. We snow the voters and say whatever it is that needs to be said, and they make it political. And in law enforcement, it shouldn't be about politics at all. I welcome his run. I don't know about if I'm ready for these red carpets. And I love the ladies that always say, aren't you so proud of your husband? I'm like, he should be proud of me. I do the same job.
Okay.
But
absolutely, I am.
I'm telling you, please run fast to help change some of this. It would be a refreshing and a welcome. And with that being said, I am going to steamroll past my other conversations. They will be that last slide will go to our next. And I just gave you guys my whole PowerPoint slide. So sorry, I got passionate about that entire thing. So I'm going to steamroll through these to get to that last slide. But in closing, I want to thank you all for attending the Code 3 Conversations. We have these conversations every second and fourth Wednesday of every month. And we welcome that you would sign up, get your ticket. It's free. Hang out with us. We implore you to come over to the panel side. Have your voices heard. Those of you who actually spoke in the chat, thank you. Thank you for participating and allowing us to see you and to actually know that you were here. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. And those are all my contacts. Basically, it's the same. CC Strong all the way across the board, just different variations depending on the platform. Connect in with me. Help this message go much broader. Like, subscribe, push it out to friends, invite them to actually come and join us. And lastly, for those of you who are higher achievers, join our think tank. And the think tank is where we're going deeper. And I want to be able to say planning, taking this a little bit higher and preparing for what is to come. Because this is of my faith side of things. I'm a praying woman, and I know that prayers are answered. And that's where I am doing. I am praying for change within Los Angeles County. I love wearing the uniform, and I'm not anti-police at all, but I am anti-police doing wrong. And I've been that way since I was a deputy. It didn't just come as a middle manager, so to speak, as my lieutenant rank. And I'd like to think that I made a difference. So I am so grateful. Thank you, Leslie, for coming over to our panel. I invite you all that are in the audience, please come back and see us. We will be here on the 24th of September, same bat channel, same place. And we will be talking about our next topic that we missed. I know my team is going to get on me because I already know a couple of mistakes I made. So I'm going to publicly apologize to my team. They are amazing. So I want to thank them for being here as well. And I see one last thing. And when in jail, you can't send it back and get another meal like a restaurant. Sometimes you just don't get food that day. That's a deep one. That's a deep statement, Eric. Make sure we capture that. My staff, I'm sure they're on it. They're capturing everything to keep me on point. That's a deep statement. I'm glad that I spoke out, and I would do it all over again. I wouldn't change a thing. I'd go through all the headache and the heartache to get where we are today. So we thank you so much for joining Code 3 Conversations. Please like and subscribe. Go back and watch the other episodes on YouTube. Join in on TikTok. Hey, hit me up. Contact me. www.ccstrong.com. Tap in, and I would love to have a conversation with you one-on-one. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all the comments and interaction. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Guys. Have an amazing evening, all.
Too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.